Most people think of poverty as a moral or behavioral failure. If someone is broke, the usual explanation is that they simply do not work hard enough. This video challenges that assumption at its root. Its central argument is simple but unsettling. Being poor is not just about having less money. It is about being subjected to a mathematical penalty that makes everything more expensive. When you lack money, you do not merely experience inconvenience. You are forced into decisions that carry higher long-term costs, greater risk, and harsher consequences. Small financial problems cannot be absorbed. They cascade. A minor issue that could have been solved cheaply becomes a major crisis because there is no buffer to stop the damage early. This is not bad luck. It is a predictable, repeatable pattern. The key insight is that poverty functions like a trap built out of numbers. Without upfront capital, you pay more per unit, more in fees, more in interest, and more in lost time. You are excluded from efficiencies that people with money take for granted. Over time, this creates a widening gap where effort alone is not enough to catch up. Two people can work equally hard, yet the one with even a small financial cushion will consistently come out ahead. This removes the moral judgment from financial struggle. The problem is not that poor people are irresponsible. The problem is that the system punishes people for lacking liquidity. Poverty, in this sense, is not a temporary state. It is a compounding equation, and unless that equation is understood, most traditional financial advice completely misses the point. The most powerful framework in this discussion comes from what is known as the Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. Though it originated in fiction, it explains real-world inequality with brutal clarity. The theory illustrates how poverty is not just a lack of money, but a mechanism that forces people to make choices that are financially inferior over time. The idea is straightforward. Imagine two people who both need a pair of boots for work. The wealthy person can afford a high-quality pair that costs more upfront, but lasts for years. The poor person cannot. They are forced to buy the cheapest option available, boots that wear out quickly and must be replaced again and again. Over a long enough timeline, the poor person ends up spending more money in total, while still being worse off in terms of comfort, reliability, and security. This is the essence of the poverty penalty. You pay extra for not having money. The cost is not obvious when you look at individual purchases, but it becomes undeniable when you zoom out and examine the long-term math. Poverty removes the ability to optimize for durability, efficiency, and total cost of ownership. Every decision becomes short-term by necessity, not by preference. What makes the Boots theory so important is that it exposes a structural imbalance. The rich person is not winning because they are smarter or more disciplined in this scenario. They are winning because they have access to capital. That access allows them to escape repeated costs, uncertainty, and constant replacement. Meanwhile, the poor person is locked into a cycle where every solution is temporary and every fix creates another future expense. This dynamic does not apply only to boots. It is the underlying logic behind countless everyday experiences, from household goods to transportation, housing, and even time itself. Once you recognize this pattern, it becomes impossible to see poverty as a simple failure of budgeting. It is a system that compounds disadvantage by design. One of the clearest demonstrations of the poverty trap is how small, manageable problems turn into financial disasters when there is no cash buffer. The video opens with a familiar scenario. A warning light appears on your car dashboard. You know the repair might cost a few $100s. Under normal circumstances, this would be an annoyance, not a crisis. But when your bank account is nearly empty, that repair becomes impossible. So the problem is ignored, not because the person is careless, but because they have no choice. Bills are due. Rent comes first. Groceries come next. The car still runs, at least for now, but mechanical problems do not pause out of sympathy. Over time, the untreated issue causes additional damage. Eventually, the car breaks down completely, often in the worst possible moment on the way to work, on the highway, or during an emergency. At that point, the costs multiply rapidly. There is the tow truck. There is the major repair that could have been avoided. There is lost income from missed work. What began as a $300 problem quietly grows into a multi-thousand-dollar crisis. This is not an accident. It is a predictable outcome of delayed maintenance combined with financial fragility. This pattern shows why poverty is best understood as a system under constant stress. When you have money, you can intercept problems early. When you do not, every issue must be endured until it becomes unavoidable. The poor are not reckless for postponing repairs. They are rational actors responding to scarcity. The tragedy is that scarcity turns rational short-term decisions into long-term losses. The deeper insight here is that liquidity is preventative medicine. Cash does not just solve problems, it prevents them from growing. Without it, life becomes reactive. You are always responding to emergencies, never preventing them. And in a reactive financial life, the math is always working against you. One of the least visible but most punishing aspects of poverty is what economists often refer to as the poverty premium. This premium shows up in the most ordinary places: grocery aisles, convenience stores, and household necessities. It is not about luxury spending. It is about paying more for the exact same products simply because you cannot afford to buy ahead. When you have extra cash, you can shop in bulk. You can go to warehouse stores, buy larger packages, and take advantage of lower per unit prices. The upfront cost is higher, but the long-term cost is lower. This is a basic principle of economies of scale, and it quietly rewards people who already have money. If you are living paycheck to paycheck, that option disappears. You are not choosing to buy small quantities. You are forced to. With only a few dollars available, you shop at corner stores and buy the smallest packages possible. The price per unit is dramatically higher, even though the product itself is identical. Over time, this adds up to hundreds or thousands of dollars in extra spending. The result is that inflation is effectively higher for poor people than for rich people. While official inflation numbers assume access to optimal pricing, people without savings are locked out of those efficiencies. They experience a different, harsher economic reality, one where every necessity quietly costs more. What makes this especially damaging is that it compounds. Money spent on higher per unit prices is money that cannot be saved. And because savings are what unlock lower prices, the cycle feeds itself. You pay more because you have less, and you have less because you pay more. This is why traditional budgeting advice often fails. Telling someone to cut expenses ignores the fact that many of their expenses are already inflated by structural constraints. The issue is not spending too much. It is being forced to buy inefficiently. And as long as that inefficiency remains, poverty continues to tax every aspect of daily life. The poverty premium does not stop at groceries or household goods. It becomes far more severe when it intersects with the banking system. This is where the math turns openly punitive. Modern banking rewards people for already having money and penalizes those who are struggling to get by. If you maintain a healthy balance in your account, banks treat you generously. Monthly fees disappear. You may receive free services, preferential treatment, and occasionally even interest on your deposits. Your money works for you simply by existing in the system. But if you are poor, the relationship flips. A single miscalculation, a forgotten subscription, or a delayed paycheck can push your balance slightly negative. When that happens, the bank does not offer grace. It charges an overdraft fee that can be many times larger than the amount you were short. Borrowing a few dollars for a single day can result in a fee that translates to an annualized interest rate of several 100%. In any other context, this would be considered predatory. Yet within the banking system, it is normalized. Overdraft fees generate billions of dollars each year, and the vast majority of that revenue comes from people with very low account balances. Those who can least afford to pay are charged the most. This creates a quiet but powerful wealth transfer. Money flows upward from people living on the edge to large financial institutions under the label of service fees. The rich earn interest, the poor pay it, not because they are reckless, but because they are exposed to constant financial volatility without protection. What makes this especially corrosive is that these fees reduce the very liquidity that would prevent future overdrafts. Each penalty pushes the account holder further from stability, making the next mistake more likely. The system is not designed to help people recover from financial stress. It is designed to monetize that stress. Up to this point, the discussion has focused on money, prices, and systems. But one of the most damaging effects of poverty is not financial at all. It is cognitive. Chronic financial stress fundamentally changes how the brain functions, and this shift has measurable consequences. When someone is constantly worried about money, about rent, food, utilities, or an unexpected bill, their mental bandwidth shrinks. Studies have shown that scarcity can reduce functional IQ by a significant margin, comparable to the effects of sleep deprivation. This does not mean that poor people are less intelligent. It means their cognitive resources are being consumed by immediate survival concerns. Under these conditions, long-term planning becomes extraordinarily difficult. The brain prioritizes urgency over strategy. Decisions are made to relieve short-term pressure, even when those decisions create long-term harm. From the outside, these choices can look irrational. From the inside, they are often the only options that feel manageable in the moment. This is why poverty is so often misunderstood. Observers see the outcomes but ignore the context. They assume poor judgment, when in reality, the issue is cognitive overload. When every dollar matters and every mistake carries severe consequences, the mind operates in a constant state of triage. The Boots theory is not just about money. It is also about mental energy. Having reliable resources reduces the number of decisions that must be made under pressure. The wealthy person is not just buying durable boots, they are buying peace of mind. They do not have to think about replacement, repair, or failure. That freed mental capacity can be redirected toward learning, investing, or planning. The poor, by contrast, are trapped in a loop of continuous concern. This ongoing strain compounds the financial penalties discussed earlier, turning poverty into both an economic and psychological trap. The logic of the Boots theory becomes even more brutal when applied to big-ticket necessities like transportation and housing. These are not discretionary purchases. In much of modern society, especially in the United States, they are prerequisites for employment and stability. And yet, access to affordable versions of these necessities is largely restricted to those who already have money. Consider cars. A person with savings and decent credit can buy a reliable used vehicle, often a few years old, well-maintained, and designed to last. They may pay in cash or secure a low-interest loan. Over time, the total cost of ownership remains manageable. Repairs are predictable. The car functions as a tool, not a liability. Now compare that to someone with no savings and poor credit. They still need a car to work, but their options are limited. They turn to high-risk dealerships that sell low-quality vehicles at inflated prices, financed at extreme interest rates. By the time the loan is paid off, the buyer may have spent several times the car's actual value. Worse, The vehicle often breaks down before the payments end, leaving them with debt for a car that no longer runs. Housing follows a similar pattern. Renting requires no large upfront payment, which makes it the only option for many low-income households. But rent builds no equity. It is, in effect, paying interest forever. In many cases, monthly rent exceeds what a mortgage payment would be for the same property. Yet without a down payment, ownership remains out of reach. This creates a cruel paradox. The people who could most benefit from lower housing costs and asset appreciation are excluded from ownership by the very expenses that renting imposes. They pay more each month for less long-term security. In both cases, cars and housing, the poor are not paying for the asset alone. They are paying a risk premium. Society has labeled them risky, and that risk is priced directly into their lives. The only way to stop being considered risky is to accumulate wealth. But the premiums charged make that accumulation extraordinarily difficult. The cycle sustains itself. Money is not the only resource that poverty consumes. It also takes time and often far more of it than people realize. This loss of time functions as a hidden tax, one that quietly erodes future earning potential, rest, and quality of life. When you have money, many everyday tasks are frictionless. Laundry takes minutes of active effort because it happens in your own home. Grocery shopping is efficient because affordable stores are nearby. Transportation is direct. Time remains flexible and largely under your control. When you are poor, the same tasks expand to fill hours. Without in-unit laundry, a simple chore requires travel, waiting, and constant attention at a laundromat. What could have been a brief interruption becomes a half-day commitment. The same dynamic appears in food access. Many low-income neighborhoods lack full-scale grocery stores. Instead, residents rely on convenience stores with higher prices and limited options. Reaching a cheaper store often requires public transportation, additional fares, and long travel times. This accumulation of friction changes the shape of daily life. Everything takes longer. Everything requires more effort. And because time is a prerequisite for improving one's situation, its loss is especially damaging. Time poverty reinforces every other penalty discussed so far. It reduces recovery, increases burnout, and limits opportunities. Poverty does not just cost money, it actively steals the capacity to escape itself. Most mainstream financial advice is built for people who already have margin in their lives. It assumes excess cash, stable income, and emotional breathing room. That is why, for people living in poverty, this advice often feels insulting rather than helpful. Suggestions like cut out lattes, cancel subscriptions, or invest in the stock market misunderstand the nature of the problem. When someone is struggling financially, the issue is rarely discretionary spending. It is structural exposure. Similarly, advice to invest for long-term returns ignores a crucial reality. Poor people are facing short-term penalties with far higher effective interest rates. Stability must come before optimization. The real priority for people in financial distress is not wealth creation, but damage control. Until the bleeding stops, no amount of budgeting or investing will produce meaningful progress. If poverty is a mathematical trap, then the way out is not a sudden leap, but a structural interruption. That interruption comes in the form of a buffer, a small amount of cash set aside to absorb shocks before they turn into disasters. That initial buffer does not exist to generate returns. Its purpose is to change the rules of the game. With even a modest amount of liquidity, problems lose their power to cascade. More importantly, having a buffer reduces ongoing costs. Bulk purchases become possible. High interest debt becomes avoidable. Life begins to get cheaper. Breaking the poverty trap requires a shift in thinking. The question is no longer, can I afford this monthly payment? But what is the total cost over time? The system profits from short term thinking. When people recognize and attack the penalties imposed by scarcity, the equation begins to break one good pair of boots at a time.